Hello, welcome back to our video series on the human developmental stages of emotions and our thinking. I'm Deborah Shalette Wilson, and I'm here with
Kathy McCommon.
And Ann Riddell's.
And today we're going to look at and discuss the next stage of development, which is the child stage.
The child stage is a beautiful stage because they're deeply emotional, and contrast that with the animal stage, which is so physically oriented. The child just wants to know how people work on the inside. So they're always wanting emotional sharing and emotional exploration. And the child wants to learn and grow and wants to learn and grow, as opposed to the younger stages. The rock has, no, they're rigid. You have to force them. The vegetables, you might be able to talk them into a little bit if you give them the appearance of success or some other stellar achievement. And the animal, you can convince them to learn and grow if you have rewards, avoid punishment, or they get some sort of needs met, survival needs met.
Yeah, and so this stage it's like this picture of these two little girls. They're present. You can see the joy in them. They're curious. They're really looking at us, out from the picture, and they have curiosity, and they look like they're trying to think of something that they can do creatively.
They're happy.
A lot of joy. So they're close to their soulfulness, or at least they're waking up to it and beginning to get a sense of that.
But it's also deeply feeling in all the emotions, because the child has come to the realization at this stage of development that the my way of the mineral stage, or the my choice of the vegetable stage, or what meets my physical needs of the animal stage, has caused a lot of grief to a lot of people. People have been harmed. The child has been harmed. And that intense emotion is grievous to the child. So the child seeks to find another way. And it's in this stage of development that we find the divine parent. And it's not the forced religion of the mineral stage. It's not the appearance of religion in the vegetable stage, and it's not meet my physical needs, God do this, God do that, at the animal stage. It is a deep need that we all have for our divine parent, and this is a stage where spirituality becomes very real.
Yeah, and becomes very important, and the guidance.
I think it also, would you say that this is also like a stage of repentance?
Very much so. Yeah, which is essential. I know in Christian religion, repentance comes first before you can open up to something new. And that's what's so profound about this stage, is that deep repentance of, I can't believe I lived my life for me when everybody else is just as important. So such intense feeling in this stage.
And a humbling realization that there's two sides to things, that not only can I be hurt, but I can also hurt, even when I don't intend to.
And this relationship with the divine parent is what leads the child to have the strength to go into those deep, dark hurts of the past, the deep, deep unconscious traumas, and to be able to admit just how badly they've been treated, and just how badly they've treated others in recreation of these unresolved traumas. And how much they've avoided helping people as well. And there's grief on that end too. Not only the commission of trauma, but having just not done anything to help the fellow man.
And my mother said something when I confronted my parents with what they had, what we had experienced as children. One of the things my mother said was, I committed the sin of omission. So it's not that she, for lack of standing up and protecting us, she just denied what was happening and actually blamed me for some of it. And so sometimes we don't really look at, well, I haven't done anything to harm anybody, but then the other side of that is if we don't do anything,
It's very harmful.
that can be harmful as well.
And that's the intense grief of the child stage, is fully taking that on, just how many opportunities we had to help and we didn't.
Mhm. It's very humbling.
Very humbling.
And also, adolescence, which is the latter part of the animal stage, is when we take on false
The latter
authority.
part of the
I'm
child.
sorry, latter
Yeah.
part of the child
Child.
stage is when we stand up to false authority.
Mhm.
Now, a lot of people confuse adolescence with 2-year-olds, because the 2-year-old will say no a lot to parents or anyone, but it's automatic because it's an oppositional bonding stage. So they automatically say say no. They automatically say no. But adolescence is when they say no to false authority, and they're learning to say yes more and more to true authority. So it's very different. So what happens if we have an authority figure who's in the mineral stage, for example, very forceful, rigid authority figures, the adolescent says, no, I won't do that. And that can be very dangerous. Rocks and minerals can be extremely violent, and the child will still say no. And let's say a vegetable authority, which will be someone who's immersed in a storybook and wanting to assign rigid characters, and the child says, no, I won't participate in that. And the child will actually speak truth, the true life story, and not the fictional version. So again, the child can get a lot of flack, a lot of violence coming his or her way. And again, it's the strength of divine that gets the child through this. And of course, there's the animal authority that is just interested in acquiring their own physical survival needs met, sometimes excessively. And the child says no to that. I won't participate, and I won't be involved in that system unless it's useful. We'll have this divine guidance that tells us when to step in and when to step out in the child stage. But the child knows the physical isn't the be end, the end all, the ultimate, what do you call that, kingpin. It's everything flows from it. It's actually downstream from the spiritual, the mental, and emotional. So the child doesn't participate in that, but encourages people to deal with the emotional. And amazingly, when the emotional is dealt with, the physical just kind of falls into place, physical problems. And I have a good example of that. I'm thinking of a woman who had a severe food allergy. She couldn't eat all these different foods, and she had a very, very limited diet. She had extreme reactions to so many things. And I did a technique with her called focusing, where you go inside, reflect inside. What's this about? Why the severe food allergies? And she had a memory of being with her dad as an adolescent. He was screaming at her. She was screaming at him. And she just hated him in that moment, hated her dad. But she thought, I can't hate my dad. So she hated everything on the food and on the table in front of her, all the foods. Could never eat any of those again after that. It was called what we call displacement. And so with that recollection, she went into therapy, started dealing with her anger toward her father. Her allergies were instantly gone because she'd gotten to the bottom of it. And this is just a perfect story of the child stage of development. When you get to that emotional level, the physical message is heard in an emotional way. You deal with the emotional problem. You don't need the physical communication anymore. So it's a profound, profound stage. So many things happen in the child stage.
Yeah, it makes me think of when I worked for a dropout prevention program, and some of the kids were doing what they were saying this was what was going on, but the adults were saying no, it wasn't. They were supporting each other and wouldn't listen to the kids. And so what happens? So that's how they get traumatized and get stuck in those emotions, and then they carry that on into their adulthood.
And that's how children go back in time into the animal stage of development. They're not appreciated as a child, so they become more animal in their nature. That animal part of them takes over, and they express themselves physically rather than emotionally. And so many parents teach their kids that unknowingly,
Yeah.
to not be emotional, and so they have to go into physical expression, and then what happens? They get sick to express themselves physically when there's something wrong.
Or they also act out in a highly
Right.
emotional
Recreate.
way
Mm-hmm.
when they can't stand suppressing anymore. It comes out sideways, is what I say.
Absolutely.
During that child stage, I know that myself, when I was going through that, I began to set these boundaries with people in my life. And that can be very uncomfortable for people who have known you want to be one way. And then, you enter into that child stage and you're objecting to authority, or you're finding your voice and you're getting to speak up. And you run into these various characters in your life that you've never really noticed before. Your mineral people, your vegetable people, um, all of those people kind of start showing up in your life. Um, but if you can just stay and hold the path and hold the journey, these people either drift out of your life or they begin to see you through new lenses.
Yeah, and you're bringing up a really good point in that the child standing up to every stage of development, they, gosh, I'm forgetting my point. Keep talking, it'll come back to me.
Well, it not only happens with, I'm thinking of the pressure from peers,
Mm-hmm.
because they do, put up, become like an authority. Kids give their peers authority over them as well. But I can remember, uh, somebody asking me to go and do some drugs one night when I was a teenager, and we were at a little coffee shop teen thing. And I was sitting at this table, and these couple guys came over and introduced themselves, and they were saying, well, you want to do drugs? And I'm, go out in the car. We've got some, I think, weed or whatever it was. And I said, no. And I was being nice. So I said, no, thank you.
I'm good.
Because I'm from the South, and you need to have a good manner. So, you just say no, thank you. And I said, no, thank you. And he, they kept pushing it. And they kept saying, why? And I finally said, because I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. They left me alone after that. But I mean, that was a way of asserting, that I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the different stages as far as relationships go, the vegetable stage is all about acting out a script and playing their role. And they get very upset if you want them out of their role because they like their role, they're comfortable there. And then the animal, if there's a problem in a relationship, they tend to either get aggressive, the fight, or they walk away, retreat. Whereas the child starts engaging people, like, why are you doing that? Why are you wanting me to do drugs? They're curious, and they really get into that deeper level. And it's beautiful. The child relationships can be very beautiful because they're really deeply caring, and they now realize that care is going to that deeper level and not just superficial having fun like the animal. Let's just have a good time.
I think that's what he was into.
Yeah. They go at the deeper level.
By his definition.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're willing to stand in that until they receive it from that person. And they actually begin to start taking a stand for the people in their lives, modeling this new way of being. And people that you wouldn't think would move begin to move in just the most beautiful ways.
So that's the child stage.
That's the child stage.
And the thing about the child is we want to usher them into the next stage of development, which is the stage of woman, which is a mind-focused stage. So anything you can do to help the child get past that utter tenderness of, oh, I don't want to hurt anybody, to that bigger vision of sometimes hurting people in the short term is what helps them in the long term. which the stage of woman understands.
And also, we always, in the child stage, everybody just wants to get along. You know, let's just all get along. That's not always going to be to everyone's advantage, not even the child, if they're just trying to get along. Sometimes we can't get along. We've got to say what our truth is.
Yeah.
For everyone's sake.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's the child stage, and we will see you again soon with our continuing series on human growth and development. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.